I only recently started playing Pokemon Go, but after this experience, I'm much more hesitant about where I go with it. What I mean is, I used to drive and walk around everywhere, trying to locate all the Pokestops I could and find all sorts of gym locations. For such an amazing game, there isn't really much player-to-player interaction, at least not just yet. That just makes this experience all the more surprising for me though. I live in West Tennessee. For privacy reasons, I'd rather not say my exact city. I think I learned my lesson on caution this time. At the moment, around this place, it's maybe 10% town and 90% woods. It's the most beautiful place you'll ever see, especially during the fall. I've been here all my life, and I don't think I'll ever go anywhere else. Ever since I could first hold a Game Boy, I've been a huge Pokemon fan. I got Pokemon Red when it came out immediately. I just had to have the yellow version when it released too. I've owned at least one game for each generation. I think it was sometime in 2015 that I learned about the upcoming Pokemon Go and was insanely excited finding Pokemon in real life. What could go wrong? The other day when it released, I finally downloaded it, almost immediately as soon as it went live. I spent all day finding what nearby landmarks were Pokestops, the local park, a fountain, and the university. There were dozens more like that, which is way more than I thought there would be, at least for my little town. It was extremely exciting, but being a sort of antisocial person, seeing all these other people gathering around these sordid locations made me very nervous. I tried to stay away if anyone else was there, for those exact same reasons. One day though, I spent a little bit of cash to get some Poke Coins to buy Pokeballs. I planned on spending a few hours dedicated to catching as many different Pokemon as I could. You know, gathering up some Stardust and candies. I had a couple of incenses as well. I decided to use those. Dozens of Pokemon and 2 incenses later, I was still reeling for more things to catch, but it wasn't coming very fast anymore. I was still sticking near my home at the time. We lived in a rural area with miles of woods in our backyard. I was walking around out there. I couldn't have been half a mile out, just wandering around and being a dork. The sun was beginning to set, but I had maybe a good 45 minutes or so before it really got dark. I'd never been worried too much about the dark anyway. It had been about 15 minutes since I had seen anything, and it was mostly low-level Caterpies and Metapods. That was about the time, though, that I saw a large patch of pink and purple on the app, just north of my location. It was about 30 or 40 yards away and looked exactly like the incense you would use on yourself. I hadn't seen anything like this before on the game. I know there's a lot of stuff I hadn't tried yet and items I had yet to use though. I was extremely nervous about going out this far just for Pokemon. For one, there were definitely no landmarks out here, so this couldn't have been something like that. If it wasn't that, then it must have been something another player put up. That would mean someone else was out there with me. I decided to stop being a wet noodle and investigate what was going on here. Maybe I'd end up with a new friend or maybe a few more Pokemon. The shadows of the trees were cast even further now, and a lot of the forest was starting to become dim. The leaves were so thick that the woods got dark much more quickly than anything else. I didn't really give it too much thought though. A few minutes before it was completely dark, on my phone I noticed I was just at the outskirts of that purple ring. Almost the exact moment I passed into it, a Scyther and a Spearow had appeared. Of course, I had to go after these Mons. The Scyther kept walking further into the ring. The thing was pretty damn stubborn. I think it took 5 Pokeballs before I finally caught it. When the GPS screen came back into view, I noticed I'd wandered dead center into the little purple ring. I looked up and gasped. I nearly dropped my phone, taking a few steps back instinctively. There were 3 other people standing around me, only 3 or so yards away. They hadn't said anything, and they hadn't made any noise at all. I'd had no idea they were even there until I finally looked up. What really scared me, though, was the fact they were all wearing these masks. White, expressionless masks, all the same ones. They looked like men. They were easily far taller and heavier than me. I didn't see any weapons on them, but this didn't make me feel any better. They stepped closer to me, almost in unison. Did they want to hurt me? I didn't know. Without saying anything, I turned around and ran home. As I did so, I heard several footsteps keeping speed behind me. I ran harder and faster. Say what you will, but at one point I think I even started to cry. I'd never been so scared in my life. Through watery eyes, it was difficult to see the trees in the dark in front of me. I almost ran face first into a few of them. The footsteps began to fade behind me, but they were quickly replaced with the sound of raucous laughter. It was loud and deep. I didn't stop though. I continued full speed ahead. Even after I was within view of my house, I ran inside and made sure everything was locked up. I found my father and mother and told them what happened. They checked the windows, and my dad walked outside a bit. He stayed on the porch afterward for a few hours, making sure no one tried to come out of those woods. That's easily my scariest experience, and I'm not sure I'll ever get over it. I don't know if it was just a bunch of guys trying to prank people or what. I mean, surely 3 guys bigger than me could have caught me easily if they wanted to. It still sends chills down my spine. I looked on my phone just yesterday. I was in bed and decided to see what was up with that purple ring. Turns out there really was a Pokestop out there in the middle of nowhere. When I selected it, the picture showed an oddly mangled tree. I actually recognized this tree too. It was called the Knotted Willow in my town. The only people I thought knew about it though were my family and the neighbors around us. Turns out someone had used a lure module on that Pokestop to attract Pokemon. Better yet, to attract people such as me. I'll never know what they were really trying to do that day. Maybe they were just trying to play a prank on me or something. I felt too scared to head out there alone after, but I felt I needed to share this story to warn others about the dangers of getting lured in an online game. I'm what I would most certainly call a creep magnet. I get weirdos around me all the time. It's become a sort of joke I share with my friends and coworkers even, telling them of the many, oh so many creepers I've encountered in my time as a retail employee. I get all kinds of people in my store. I'm very well known for my bright attitude and overly chipper way of being, which has come to be liked by regulars and newcomers alike. It's also more than likely a contributing factor in why so many weirdos seem to crowd around me. That and my height. I'm a very short girl. I'm only 4'8", and I look even younger than my age of 21. I happen to be rather filled out for how young I look too, so add on another reason. Anyway, on to the story. This day was just like any other ordinary day, working by myself in the store, checking out customers, and stocking shelves in my moments away from the register. At some point, I greeted a man with a large dark beard, bald and wearing dark glasses as he came in through the door. He immediately smiled and got that surprised look on his face that I've come to know. The sorta, I really feel like creeping on this girl today look. No biggie, I'm used to it and I know how to handle myself. Eventually, after an hour or two of being on register, I'd pretty much cleaned the store out of customers and moved on to stocking up the candy. The man with the beard approached me with a smile and held up a large white trash can. Excuse me? Yeah, I replied, glancing up from the box I was stocking. Are there any more of these in the back? This one doesn't have a lid. He gestured to the large trash can in his hand. Oh, yeah, I can go check that for you. I smiled and was polite like I always was with customers, before turning away and heading toward the stock room. I noticed he was following behind me, but I didn't really give it much thought. I glanced down the aisles for any other customers as I walked. I immediately took note of the store's complete emptiness. Well, shit, I guess it's just us in here, I thought to myself. Moving through the stockroom door, I was relieved when the man stopped at the entrance. I'll be right back, I said, as I made a turn around some full-row containers, which due to just receiving a truck of supplies, our stockroom was full of them. They stood very tall and were like giant movable walls, very heavy, mind you. Being so small, I didn't have to move them very much to make a path through and see what was inside. After only a minute, I'd made myself a little path, having 3 heavy ones on my right and left, and in front of me as well. I decided I had to give up on my search for trash cans, though. Sighing, I went to turn around and inform the man of my defeat, only to find he was standing in my tiny path of walls. A very tight squeeze for a man of his stature, standing directly behind me. Did you find them? No, I don't think we had any. I tried to laugh and avoid acknowledging the creepy situation. I was in a very tiny area, with walls at my back and sides. Towering over me was this very robust man, standing in the way of my only exit. This room was also very far from any possible cameras, and there were no other employees in the store. I was helpless and growing increasingly scared at how this man didn't seem to want to let me get out. I voiced that I needed to return to work after a solid minute went by, but I was not able to get out a single word before he interrupted me in this creepy, almost shy voice. "You're just the cutest little thing. Did you know that?" Within an instant, I was terrified. I could just feel the ill intention oozing from this guy. Oh my god, this is how I die, I thought. Surprising myself though, I choked out without thinking. "I just heard my bell." He looked confused but didn't budge. "I just heard my bell. There are people up front who need to be checked out, and they're looking for me right now." I stood there nervously, knowing full well neither of us had heard that familiar ching from the service bell. "But what about my trash can?" he asked, stepping forward and taking a glance back. "I'll mark it down half price, no big deal." I laughed and tried to act as if nothing was out of the ordinary. I slipped by him, seeing my opening at his turning around in surprise. I tried my hardest to walk away, pretending to be calm as I exited the stockroom. I sprinted to the front of the store the moment I was out of sight. The man wound up leaving after, without even purchasing his beloved trash can. This experience may not be so much terrifying as it is just really creepy. Then again, it may not be anything at all but a simple glitch. Still, I'd like to share it, because it really piqued my curiosity. I'm a Pokemon Go addict. I'm talking all day, every day. If the phone isn't right in front of my face, it's tucked away in my pocket, and I'm waiting for something to come. Now, I live out in the hills of Missouri. There's no flat land as far as the eye can see. I guess somehow though, thanks to Verizon, I still get reception most places. My Pokemon Go habit is easily enabled because of this. Unfortunately, as you might imagine, there aren't very many Pokestops around here. I mean, why would there be? All that's here is trees around for miles on end. Whenever I went to actual civilization, like into town, I'd be sure to hit as many as possible before I had to go back home to the middle of nowhere. Really though, I think it's just crazy that they can program any Pokestops all the way out here. It's really amazing. Anyway, this happened during the weekend. I was at home using some incense to lure my Pokemon prey to me. I kinda felt too lazy to get up and walk. Ever since I started playing, there has not been one single Pokestop appearing nearby while I was at home. So when I saw a Pokestop appear about 200 yards away, I was surprised to say the least. I remember wondering what the hell was going on. You know, when did that get here? What landmark would that even be? My damn house? There was nothing but woods around here. Curiosity took hold of me, and I'm sure you can guess what I did next. I threw on my shoes and stepped outside. I made my way toward this strange area. Of course, I tapped its icon on the screen to see what picture it would show. You know, at least explain which landmark this might be referring to. But when it loaded up, it was not like it was too bright to see. It's just that the picture was a blank white space. That was odd. If there was no picture, or even if it hadn't loaded correctly, wouldn't it have been black or something? It was like somebody had just uploaded a picture of white background space. The whole situation was getting weirder by the second. I was in the middle of the woods now, slowly getting closer to this alleged Pokestop. I kept clicking the dang thing, but the picture would never change. No text either. Eventually, my little ring around my avatar hit the area I was looking for. The Pokestop activated, so I spun it. I may as well have tried to grab the atoms in the air. All that came out were empty bubbles and a single egg. Yes, empty bubbles. 2 of the exact same text appeared, saying I had received some garbled jumble of text. The egg, of course, was a regular egg, one of the 10-kilometer ones. Lucky enough, I thought at the time I just hoped it wasn't an Eevee. I stayed there for a moment, just expecting something to finally load on my phone. I mean, I had full reception out here, but this damn thing refused to budge. It didn't change even after a few minutes, so I decided to walk back. I was starting to get real creeped out. I also started to hear footsteps somewhere in the woods around me, starting to follow me. I quickly fled away from the area. A couple of days passed by, and I had walked at least 30 kilometers, but not even a tenth of a kilometer had registered on this weird egg. In fact, I had others in my inventory that had long since hatched, twice over at least. This egg from that creepy Pokestop never even budged though. I'm still waiting to see if anything happens when it finally does. Maybe I'll update. To end on an even weirder note, that strange Pokestop is gone now. I haven't seen it appear since either. I really hope it's just a glitch, but I don't know if someone hacked the app or what. About to move countries in 2015, my girlfriends and I decided to get together as a final bon voyage type of deal. We settled on our favorite pub, one we'd all frequented for the past 2 years. 5 of us managed to squeeze around a table and have a good laugh as we sipped on Chardonnay and kicked off the night with smiles and sentiment. We recalled fun stories, knowing that I wouldn't be seeing my friends again for years. 1 shot of fruity vodka later, my friend left the bar alone in order to get everyone another glass of Chardonnay. That drink now makes me gag just by hearing the name or tasting it today. I recall being a few sips in, maybe a quarter into my large glass, before I had no choice but to stop drinking. At the time, I only thought the alcohol hit me far faster than I was used to. It was strange considering I'd had a large dinner beforehand, which is generally safer than drinking on an empty stomach. It consumed my vision first. Moving my eyes was strained and heavy, and it made the surrounding walls of the pub shift slowly whenever I tried to focus my gaze. A similar sensation to hopping off a once spinning roundabout as a kid. Guys, I was surprised at how distant and slurred my voice was. So was everyone else at the table, considering they all fell silent at once. In that state, all I could get out was a single, "Something doesn't feel right," among yet another slur. In the brief moments I could hold my gaze long enough to look at my friends, I recall them exchanging uncomfortable glances before they started to laugh. "You're such a lightweight." That was that. something I hold zero grudge for when we remember that my friends were tipsy at this point of the evening. I began rocking lightly in my chair, the movement subtle since I was simply trying to remain on my seat. My strained call of "something's wrong" were my last words for several hours, though not for lack of trying. One of my friends propped themselves between each of my arms, propping me like a drunken puppet for the rest of the night. While outside in the smoking area, I have a vague memory of a lone man without a drink in his hand, smirking at me. I thought it was odd that he was alone, but otherwise his misplaced amusement was easily coincidental without proof. With my head rolling over either of my shoulders, the stumbled steps and slurred protests, my friends were still settled on pub crawling even so. My memory became even darker. I could tell you the pubs we visited in vague enough order, but I have literally no memory of the areas between them. I may as well have teleported, considering the enormous gaps in my memory. People laughed at me as I sat on a bar stool struggling to stay upright, eyes rolling back into my lids whenever I couldn't focus my vision. It was only when I tried to hold a glass of water and couldn't even manage, spilling some on my friend's knee, that she finally decided to take me home. "Something's wrong," I tried to say again, stumbling and falling onto the pavement. They all laughed and complained once again that I was a lightweight. I woke up in my girlfriend's bed with vomit in my hair that I didn't even remember expelling. She asked me to leave her home in the morning, probably because I'd vomited in her bedroom. Nearly falling down the staircase multiple times, I managed to barely leave her place and walk down the dark, empty street all on my own. I fell down again in the pathway and simply passed out there. Somehow, I managed to get up once more after a while, though, and make it through the front door. I was met with my very angry and worried mother, who knows I drink responsibly. I'm the type to only remain tipsy so I may look out for my friends, known to tuck everyone in with water and bread by their bedside. Needless to say, seeing me like this surprised her. I couldn't even try to speak despite trying. Only a slurred string of nonsense came out. When she left to another room, the last thing I remember is crawling up our stairs. After the next 10 to 12 hours, I woke up on my bedroom floor, tights ripped and one leg bruised from the earlier drops throughout the night. A pool of vomit was beside me, and I was struggling to breathe before blacking out again. It took me another 2 days to fully recover, which thankfully was in time for me to board my plane to another country. It was one hell of a send-off, that's for sure. For those wondering why I didn't go to the hospital, well, that's because I was fucking unconscious, and everyone around me shrugged off that I was unconscious for like 2 days as nothing more than a hangover. It was only years later when I told this story to some good friends that they shook some sense into me, confirming I'd been drugged that night. My theory is that some asshole spotted a group of young women enjoying a girls' night and dropped the drug into my drink at random when that friend had collected our glasses at the bar. He'd hoped to pick up one of us when the drug hit someone at random,